My beloved child, this is not a calm whisper from heaven. This is a divine interruption. God is not calm today. Heaven saw the mistake you made, and if you ignore this warning now, the consequences will follow. Don't skip God. Open this immediately by 11:55 p.m. before it's too late. Don't delay. You are not scrolling by accident. You did not land here randomly. The Spirit moved the algorithm. The breath of the Almighty paused your routine because something shifted in the spirit realm the moment you made that decision. Yes, that one. The one you are trying not to think about. Heaven saw it. And today, God is not silent. There are moments when the Lord watches patiently. There are seasons when He allows you to learn slowly. But this is not one of those seasons. This is an urgent hour. The clock in the spiritual realm is ticking louder than you realize. 11:55 p.m. is not just a time on your device. It is a symbol. It represents the final 5 minutes before something irreversible is set into motion. You thought no one noticed. You convinced yourself it was small. You told your heart, it's not a big deal. But heaven measures differently. What seems small on earth can echo loudly in eternity. Archangel Michael stands alert in this hour, not in anger toward you, but in protection over you. There is a difference. When God is not calm, it does not mean He wants to destroy you. It means He refuses to let you destroy yourself. And Michael, the warrior of light, has been dispatched not to condemn you, but to block what was about to block your destiny. You are closer to a breakthrough than you know. That is why the attack came disguised as a harmless choice. The enemy never fights what is irrelevant. The pressure you felt before making that mistake was proof that something precious is attached to your future. Listen carefully. The mistake was not just about action. It was about agreement. Somewhere in your heart, you agreed with a lie. A lie that said you are not worthy. A lie that said you have time to fix it later. A lie that whispered, God will understand, so it does not matter. But heaven does not want delayed obedience. Delayed obedience is often disguised disobedience. Right now, there is a spiritual file open with your name on it. Not a file of punishment, but a file of decision. Angels are observing your response. Will you ignore this nudge? Will you stroll away? Or will you humble yourself before 11:55 p.m. and say, Lord, I see it. I repent. I realign. The reason this is urgent is because cycles are being sealed tonight. There are patterns in your bloodline that have been waiting to attach themselves to your next decision. Patterns of loss. Patterns of repeated mistakes. Patterns of doors closing at the last moment. You thought you were just making a simple choice. But that choice was a gateway. Archangel Michael has drawn his sword, not against you, but against the cycle. Yet heaven operates by permission. If you ignore this warning, the protection weakens. Not because God stops loving you, but because you stepped outside of alignment. Do you feel that weight in your chest right now? That is not anxiety. That is conviction wrapped in mercy. Conviction is a gift. It means God still claims you. If He were done with you, there would be silence. No warning. No urgency. Just distance. But instead, you are hearing this now. That is mercy racing against the clock. Before 11:55 p.m., you must do 3 things. First, acknowledge the mistake without defending it. No excuses. No comparisons. Just truth. Second, renounce the agreement you made with the lie. Speak it out loud if you must. I reject every lie that led me here. Third, invite God back into that exact area. Do not give him 90%. Give him the hidden 10% too. Because here is what you do not see. There was a blessing scheduled, a sudden opportunity, a door that required spiritual alignment to open. The enemy knew he could not block it directly, so he tried to misalign you indirectly. But heaven intervened. Archangel Michael hath been stationed near your household. There was a whisper of confusion attempting to enter your environment, a subtle shift in peace, a small crack forming in your spiritual wall. That is why this message is intense. This is not about fear. This is about preservation. God is not calm because he loves you too much to watch you walk into a silent trap. If you ignore this, consequences will not look dramatic at first. They will look like delays, miscommunications, missed timing, unexplainable resistance, and you will wonder why everything feels slightly off. But if you respond before the symbolic 11:55 p.m. in your life, something powerful happens. Cycles break. Records in the spirit or ring. What was about to close reopens. What was about to weaken becomes fortified. You think this is about punishment. It is about positioning. Heaven is repositioning you right now. Do not delay. Do not minimize. Do not assume there is always tomorrow. There are moments when tomorrow depends on what you do today. This is that moment. You feel it. That stirring. The seriousness. God is not calm today because your destiny is too valuable to lose over one careless agreement. And this is only the beginning of what heaven is revealing. Listen carefully now, because what I am about to reveal will explain why the atmosphere around you has felt different ever since that decision was made. The shift was not imagination. It was spiritual movement. When heaven saw the mistake, it was not reacting in chaos. It was responding in strategy. God is not calm today because he is actively rearranging what almost went wrong. You must understand something deeper. The mistake itself was not powerful. What gave it power was silence. When you stayed quiet about it, when you pushed it to the back of your mind, that silence became an open door. Darkness grows in unaddressed spaces. But the moment light enters, the growth stops. Archangel Michael has not stepped back. He has stepped closer. There is a reason you have been feeling restless at unusual hours. There is a reason your thoughts have been circling back to this message. It is because heaven is pressing urgency into your spirit. The time marker, 11:55 p.m., is symbolic of the final call before a reset. 5 minutes before midnight is when everything feels still, yet everything is about to change. This is the spiritual atmosphere you are standing in right now. A pause before a shift. A warning before a consequence. A chance before a closing. You might be asking, is it really that serious? Yes. Not because God is looking to punish you, but because destiny operates on precision. When timing is ignored, blessings get delayed. When warnings are ignored, lessons become harder. There was something connected to your next season that required purity of alignment, that required clarity of heart. And the mistake you made created a small distortion. Small distortions, if left unchecked, grow into strongholds. But correction, when accepted quickly, restores everything faster than you expect. This is why you cannot delay. Some of you thought the warning signs were coincidence. A sudden discomfort, the uneasy feeling, the interruption in your peace. That was not random. That was mercy speaking in a language your spirit understands. Archangel Michael is a warrior of divine order. He fights where there is chaos trying to settle. He stands where confusion tries to root itself. And right now, he is guarding the borders of your next breakthrough. But even a warrior respects your free will. Heaven will warn. Heaven will nudge. Heaven will send messages like this. But heaven will not force your response. If you respond with humility, protection intensifies. If you respond with pride, distance increases. You are not being watched to be shamed. You are being watched because you are chosen. The enemy does not monitor people who are spiritually asleep. He studies those who carry calling. The pressure you feel is confirmation that your life has weight in the spiritual realm. This is the hour to realign fully. Do not just feel conviction. Act on it. Speak differently. Think differently. Got off what needed to be got off. Close the door that should have never been opened. You already know what it is. No one needs to name it for you. The Spirit has already made it clear. And as you do this, something powerful will begin to happen. The heaviness will lift. The strange resistance will fade. The clarity you have been missing will return. But hear this clearly. If you brush this off, the consequences will not shout immediately. They will whisper slowly. Opportunities will seem slightly out of reach. Conversations will feel slightly misaligned. Favor will feel slightly delayed. Not destroyed, but postponed. God is not calm because he refuses to let almost become your story. Right now, I want you to do something bold. If this message is piercing your heart, do not stay silent. Engage with it. Like this video as a sign that you receive correction. Share it with someone who has been feeling the same spiritual tension. Comment below what you are choosing to surrender. Subscribe and become part of this community of watchful believers. When you interact, you are not just supporting a channel. You are declaring alignment publicly. The declaration has spiritual weight. There is power in agreement. And before you think about moving on, understand this. What is about to be revealed next will expose the deeper layer behind this warning. You have seen the surface, but the root is still hidden. Hold your focus, because the next revelation connects directly to your household and the unseen influence circling it. Heaven is still speaking, and what comes next may explain things you have been unable to understand for months. There is something deeper unfolding behind the scenes, and this is where many fail to discern the seriousness of the hour. What happened was not just about you. It brushed against your household. It touched the spiritual atmosphere of the place you live. When you made that decision, even if it seemed personal and private, it created a ripple effect that moved beyond your own heart. Heaven saw the ripple. God is not calm today because the calling over your house is larger than you realize. Your home is not just walls and furniture. It is a spiritual territory. It carries assignments, prayers that have been whispered in tears, dreams that have not yet been born. And when misalignment enters even subtly, it tries to shift the atmosphere. Have you noticed small changes recently? Slight tension where there used to be ease. Unusual misunderstandings. A strange heaviness at night. These are not accidents. They are indicators. They are signals that something attempted to attach itself through that open door. But listen closely. Attachment is not ownership. Just because something attempted to enter does not mean it has the right to stay. And this is where Archangel Michael's presence becomes critical. He does not only fight battles on open fields. He guards gates. He stands at thresholds. He protects households marked by divine purpose. Your home has been marked. That is why the enemy is subtle. Loud attacks are easy to identify. It is the quiet infiltration that causes the most damage. A shift in attitude, a compromise in standards, a delay in obedience. These seem small, but they stack. And when they stack long enough, they build walls that block light. God is not reacting emotionally. He is responding strategically. The warning you are receiving is an act of preservation, because something significant is scheduled to manifest in your life, and your household must be spiritually aligned to sustain it. If misalignment continues, the blessing would still attempt to arrive, but it would not feel peaceful. It would come with strain. It would come with pressure. And what was meant to be joy would feel heavy. Heaven does not want that for you. This is why tonight matters. Before the symbolic 11:55 p.m. passes in your life, you must cleanse the atmosphere intentionally. Speak over your home. Pray in every room if you must. Open a window. Let fresh air in. These physical acts mirror spiritual authority. When you take action in the natural, heaven responds in the spiritual. Do not underestimate simple obedience. Archangel Michael stands ready, but he moves where there is agreement with God's will. When you declare that your house belongs to the Lord, you are not speaking empty words. You are issuing a spiritual command. And here is what you must understand clearly. A mistake did not cancel your calling. It threatened your diamond. There is a difference. Calling is rooted in divine promise. Timing is influenced by alignment. Right now, you are being given the opportunity to protect your timing. God is not come because he sees what is ahead. He sees the doors preparing to open. He sees the relationships that are about to form. He sees the resources being arranged. And he refuses to allow a careless agreement to delay what he has ordained. There is mercy in this urgency. Some of you have been asking God for a sign. This is the sign. Some of you have been asking for confirmation. This is confirmation. Some of you have been wondering why your spirit has felt unsettled. Now you know. Heaven saw the mistake, but heaven also saw your heart. And your heart is why this message is reaching you instead of silence. You are not being condemned. You are being corrected. Correction is love in motion. So before this day closes, take authority back. Renounce what needs to be renounced. Restore what needs to be restored. Invite peace back into your household deliberately. Declare protection over your family. Declare clarity over your mind. Declare alignment over your future. Do not delay, because when midnight strikes in the spirit, cycles solidify. But when you act before that moment, cycles shatter. Type "I realign my house" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Blessing code 4455 has just been released. As you sow that declaration, understand this. When you partner with this message, you are helping light travel further. This is not about supporting a channel. This is about strengthening a spiritual signal that reaches homes on the edge of collapse and pulls them back into alignment. Scripture declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And that is not a slogan. It is God speaking directly to you now. When you release a super thanks, join membership, or send a seed through PayPal in the description, you are not funding content. You are fueling deliverance. You are placing oil in the lamp so that another family does not lose their midnight moment. I am calling you into action because your obedience multiplies impact. As you give, heaven records it as partnership and rescue. The same protection covering your household will expand over your finances and future. This is a prophetic exchange, not a transaction. Step into it boldly. Activate your support now and become a carrier of this light. Now the atmosphere begins to shift, because once you become aware, you cannot return to ignorance. Awareness brings responsibility. Responsibility brings power. And power, when handled correctly, restores what almost slipped away. Something has already started changing since you received this warning. You may not see it yet with your physical eyes, but in the spiritual realm, movement has begun. The tension that tried to root itself in your household is being confronted. The whisper that attempted to settle in your thoughts is losing its grip. God is not calm today because he is actively reclaiming ground. When heaven exposes a mistake, it is never to humiliate you. Exposure is not rejection. Exposure is surgery. It removes what could poison your future. And surgery is rarely comfortable, but it is always precise. You might still feel a lingering weight, a question in your spirit asking, what if I have already gone too far? That fear is not from God. Fear leads to paralysis. And paralysis is what the enemy hoped you would choose after realizing your mistake. But look at you. You are still here. You are still listening. That alone proves that your spirit is fighting for alignment. Archangel Michael does not guard people who have no purpose. He defends assignments. He protects divine blueprints. The intensity around you is proof that something about your life carries eternal consequence. There are generational patterns that were waiting for your agreement to continue. Cycles that have repeated in your family line for decades. Delayed success. Broken trust. Financial instability. Emotional distance. These patterns search for permission through small compromises. But here is the powerful truth. The same door that allowed entry can be closed by decision. You are not powerless in this story. You are central to it. God is not calm because this moment determines whether a cycle repeats or ends with you. And heaven prefers restoration over repetition. Right now, there are angels repositioning themselves around your environment. Not because you are perfect, but because you responded. Response activates reinforcement. The moment you chose to acknowledge the warning, assistance increased. You may start noticing subtle confirmations, a sudden sense of clarity, an unexpected conversation that brings peace, a door that seems stuck beginning to loosen. These are not coincidences. They are signs that alignment is being restored. However, do not mistake early relief for completion. Restoration requires consistency. A single prayer opens the door, but daily obedience keeps it open. This is where many people fail. They respond emotionally in the moment, but drift once the urgency fades. And when drift returns, the same cycle finds another opportunity. You must stay aware. Examine your habits. Examine your influences. Examine the environments you allow to shape your thinking. The mistake was not random. It grew from something feeding it quietly over time. Cut off that source. God is not calm because he sees your potential clearly. He sees what your life looks like fully aligned. He sees the impact, the stability, the peace, the influence. And he refuses to let temporary weakness cancel long-term destiny. There is also something you need to understand about timing. The symbolic 11:55 p.m. represents more than urgency. It represents mercy before consequence. God always sends warning before allowing harvest. That is his character. But harvest cannot be postponed forever. If you had ignored this entirely, the lesson would have come differently. It would have arrived through experience instead of instruction. And experience is always heavier. You are being spared weight. Archangel Michael's presence around your household right now is stabilizing what almost destabilized. But stabilization must be partnered with discipline. Guard your speech. Guard your thoughts. Guard your agreements, because agreement is powerful. Whatever you consistently agree with becomes your atmosphere. If you agree with fear, your home fills with tension. If you agree with doubt, your opportunities shrink. But when you agree with truth, protection strengthens. And here is the deeper layer. This was never just about avoiding consequence. It is about preparing you for increase. Increase required maturity. God is not come because promotion is near, and promotion without gradient would collapse under pressure. So he corrects before he elevates. You may not feel worthy of elevation right now, but worthiness is not the qualification. Willingness is. Are you willing to stay aligned even when no one is watching? Are you willing to choose obedience when convenience tempts you otherwise? Are you willing to protect your household spiritually instead of assuming it will protect itself? These questions matter, because what is coming next will require strength. It will require clarity. It will require unity within your environment. And the good news is this: the worst outcome was interrupted. The trajectory that was forming has been altered. The door that was cracking open has been sealed. The cycle that was waiting for permission has been denied access. But the story is not finished. There is still something heaven wants you to understand about the deeper root behind that mistake. It did not start where you think it did. And once that root is revealed, everything will make sense in a way you never expected. What you are about to understand now will change how you see that mistake forever. Because the action was only the surface. The real issue was a wound that went unattended. And unattended wounds make agreements with anything that promises temporary relief. God is not calm today because he is not just correcting behavior. He is targeting the root. Somewhere in your past, there was a moment when you felt overlooked. A moment when you felt unsupported. A moment when you felt like you had to handle everything alone. That moment planted something subtle inside you. Not rebellion, not defiance, but independence without dependence on God. Independence can look strong on the outside, but spiritually it can create isolation. And isolation is where the enemy whispers the loudest. The mistake you made was not random weakness. It was the fruit of silent exhaustion. You were tired of waiting, tired of believing, tired of holding standards that others around you seemed to ignore without consequence. So in one small moment, you allowed yourself to lower the guard, and heaven saw not just the action, but the fatigue behind it. This is why God is not calm, because he knows the story behind your struggle. He knows the prayers you prayed that felt unanswered. He knows the nights you cried quietly. He knows the silent battles you never posted about. But instead of bringing that exhaustion to him again, you tried to solve it your own way. That is the root. Archangel Michael does not only fight external attacks. He stands guard when internal weakness tries to create spiritual openings. And in your case, the internal whisper said, "You deserve this." It sounded comforting. It sounded harmless, but it carried misalignment within it. You see, the enemy rarely tempts you with something obviously destructive. He tempts you with something that feels justified. Justified compromise is the most dangerous kind, because it feels reasonable. It feels earned. It feels like balance. But spiritually, it shifts authority away from God and back to self. God is not calm because self-dependence slowly erodes divine dependence. And your calling was never meant to be carried alone. The fatigue you felt was a signal to seek deeper connection, not lesser standards. Now, do not misunderstand this. You are human. You feel pressure. You experience disappointment. But your strength has always been sourced from surrender, not control. The moment you tried to manage it alone, you stepped outside of covering. It is why everything began to feel slightly unstable. The good news is this: roots can be healed. When you recognize that your mistake was tied to exhaustion rather than rebellion, it changes how you respond. You do not just repent for the action. You bring your tired heart back to God. Tell Him you were weary. Tell Him you were frustrated. Tell Him you felt unseen. That honesty restores intimacy faster than perfection never could. Archangel Michael's protective stance intensifies when humility increases. Because humility invites reinforcement. Pride isolates. Humility attracts assistance. There is also something else you must confront. You have been measuring yourself against others quietly, comparing timelines, comparing blessings, comparing progress, and comparison breeds subtle resentment. Resentment lowers standards. When you feel like others are advancing while you are waiting, compromise starts looking attractive. It feels like catching up. But destiny is not a race. It is alignment with divine timing. God is not come because He sees the comparison stealing your peace. And peace is necessary for discernment. Without peace, you misread situations. Without peace, you justify shortcuts. Without peace, you forget promises. Right now, heaven is restoring your peace deliberately. Not through comfort, but through clarity. You are seeing the root. You are understanding the pattern. And understanding breaks repetition. But here is what must happen next. You cannot simply promise to do better. You must restructure your environment. If certain voices feed comparison, reduce them. If certain habits feed exhaustion, adjust them. If certain spaces drain your spiritual sensitivity, step back from them. Healing requires intentional shifts. God is not calm because He is preparing you for a season that demands emotional stability. What is coming next in your life cannot be handled with silent wounds. It requires wholeness, and wholeness begins with honesty. A mistake was a symptom. The root was fatigue mixed with comparison. Now that you see it, you can uproot it. Take a deep breath. This is not condemnation. This is restoration unfolding in layers. You are not behind. You are being refined. And refinement always feels intense before it feels victorious. Stay aware, because what is about to be revealed next will show you how this internal wound almost aligned with an external distraction that could have altered your path more drastically than you realize. Now you must see how the internal wound and the external distraction were not separate events. They were convergent. The fatigue within you created vulnerability, and at the exact moment your guard weakened, an opportunity appeared. It looked ordinary. It looked harmless. But its timing was strategic. God is not calm today because He sees intersections long before you do. The external distraction was not random. It was sent at the precise hour when your emotions were unsettled, when you were questioning your pace, when you were feeling unseen. The enemy studies patterns. He waits for predictable lows, and then he introduces something that feels like relief. Relief can be dangerous when it bypasses discernment. What entered your life during that vulnerable window carried subtle influence. It did not immediately demand compromise. It simply suggested it. It offered understanding without accountability. It provided comfort without correction. That is how infiltration begins. Archangel Michael observed the timing. That is why the warning came with urgency. Because had the connection between your wound and that distraction deepened, the entanglement would have been harder to break. You must understand something clearly. Not every opportunity is a blessing. Not every open door is from God. some doors open to test alignment. God is not come because he saw how close the alignment almost shifted permanently. If the distraction had taken stronger root, it would have gradually influenced your decisions. Your standards would have adjusted slowly. Your spiritual sensitivity would have dulled quietly, and you would not have noticed the drift until distance replaced intimacy. Drift is rarely dramatic. It is gradual. You might already sense what this is about. A conversation that lingered too long. An attachment forming faster than wisdom allowed. A habit returning that you thought was conquered. A voice gaining influence that should have remained distant. Whatever it was, its power depended on secrecy and delay. But you are not delaying anymore. Archangel Michael's assignment around you intensified because your destiny carries weight beyond your current understanding. There are people connected to your obedience who do not even know your name yet. There are future opportunities that require spiritual stability now. This is why heaven interrupted you before midnight. God is not calm because destiny is precise. The wrong alignment at the wrong time can redirect years. But the right correction at the right time can accelerate restoration. You may feel embarrassed that it almost happened. Do not. Awareness is victory in motion. Now, this is where your responsibility becomes visible. It is not enough to recognize the distraction. You must create distance from it. Distance is not weakness. Distance is wisdom. If a conversation leads you toward compromise, shorten it. If an environment feeds your old patterns, leave it. If a digital habit weakens your focus, restrict it. Protecting your alignment requires practical decisions. Heaven partners with action. And let me speak directly to you in this moment. If this message is awakening something specific in your spirit, do not keep it to yourself. Like this video as a declaration that you choose alignment over distraction. Share it with someone who has been battling silent compromise. Comment what you are separating from starting today. Subscribe and stand with this community of watchful believers. Your engagement is not just online activity. It is agreement with truth. When you publicly align, you strengthen your private discipline. Something powerful happens when you refuse to hide. And before you think this is the end of the revelation, understand this. The distraction was only phase 1. There was a second layer attached to it. A layer connected not just to temptation, but to delay. Delay is more damaging than failure sometimes, because failure teaches quickly. Delay drains slowly. If that distraction had fully rooted itself, it would not have destroyed you instantly. It would have consumed time. Time that was meant for building. Time that was meant for preparation. Time that was meant for growth. God is not calm because he protects your timeline fiercely. The enemy cannot cancel your calling, but he can attempt to postpone it. And postponement creates frustration. Frustration creates impatience. Impatience creates more compromise. That is the cycle that was forming. But it hath been interrupted. Still, stay attentive. The relief you feel right now must not turn into complacency. The same distraction may attempt to reappear in a different form. Recognize patterns, not just faces. You are stronger than you were yesterday because now you see clearly. And clarity is a weapon. What is about to unfold next will reveal how this entire situation was connected to a larger spiritual resistance against the next elevation in your life. The battle was never about the small mistake. It was about the level you are about to step into. Hold your focus, because this next revelation will show you why heaven reacted with such intensity. What you must see now is the scale of what was at stake. The mistake, the distraction, the fatigue, the timing, none of it was isolated. It was coordinated resistance against your next level. You thought it was about a small personal lapse. Heaven saw it as a strategic attempt to delay elevation. God is not calm today because promotion is closer than you think. There is a shift coming in your life that will place you in greater visibility, greater responsibility, greater influence. It may not look like a stage or a spotlight. It may look like increased trust, increased resources, increased authority in quiet spaces. But influence is influence, whether public or private. And influence attracts resistance. The enemy does not intensify pressure when you are stagnant. He intensifies pressure when you are advancing. The sudden fatigue you felt was not random exhaustion. It was resistance pressing against growth. The distraction that appeared was not accidental timing. It was a test designed to see if you would compromise before elevation. Elevation without refinement creates collapse. So heaven allowed the test, but refused to let you fall fully into it. Archangel Michael stepped closer because the spiritual atmosphere around your life is shifting upward. When levels change, battles change. What did not bother you before may begin to react. What ignored you previously may now monitor you. This is not to create fear. It is to create awareness. God is not calm because He is preparing you for a higher dimension of responsibility. And higher dimensions require sharper discernment. You cannot carry new oil in old habits. You cannot walk into new authority with hidden agreements still active. That is why exposure came before expansion. Imagine if you had stepped into the next season while still carrying that internal wound. The pressure of increase would have magnified it. The distraction would have gained more access. The fatigue would have deepened. What felt manageable now would have become overwhelming later. Heaven prevented future damage by confronting present weakness. You may not realize it yet, but this correction is evidence that you are trusted with more. Correction is training for leadership. Only those assigned to greater responsibility are refined at this level. Here is also something else unfolding. Certain people around you are about to notice the shift in you. Not because you announce it, but because stability will begin to replace uncertainty. Confidence will replace comparison. Peace will replace pressure. Where alignment strengthens, presence changes. God is not calm because He is recalibrating your identity. You are not who you were a few weeks ago. Awareness has sharpened you. Discernment has matured you. The very thing that always delayed you is now accelerating your growth. But elevation brings a new test: consistency under comfort. When the urgency fades and peace returns, will you maintain the same discipline? When distractions appear again in softer forms, will you recognize them? When opportunities come that seem harmless but carry subtle compromise, will you pause long enough to discern? Archangel Michael's protection does not replace your participation. It reinforces it. You must also understand that spiritual promotion often triggers external opposition. Not always dramatic. Sometimes subtle criticism. Sometimes misunderstanding. Sometimes distance from people who were comfortable with the previous version of you. Growth reveals alignment differences. Do not be surprised if certain connections feel strained as you strengthen your boundaries. Not everyone benefits from your discipline. Some preferred your vulnerability. God is not calm because He is repositioning relationships as well. Some will deepen. Some will fade. Some will be redefined. This is not loss. It is adjustment for elevation. There is a new level of clarity coming to your decision-making. You will begin to sense hesitation faster. You will recognize internal warning signs sooner. What once required external confirmation will now be discerned internally. This is maturity unfolding. The enemy attempted to intercept you before this awareness solidified, but he moved too late. The warning reached you in time. The exposure came before entanglement. The correction arrived before consequence. You were protected from a heavier lesson. Now, the path ahead is not just about avoiding mistakes. It is about embracing responsibility. You are stepping into a season where your choices carry multiplied impact. That is why refinement felt intense. Greater impact demands greater alignment. And here is the truth you must hold on to. You are not barely surviving a warning. You are stepping into a calling. What is coming next will reveal how this elevation connects to something far bigger than your personal life. It ties into a broader assignment that affects others more than you realize. The battle was personal, but the purpose is collective. Stay attentive, because this next revelation will expand the scope of everything you thought this was about. Now the lens must widen, because what has been happening around you is not only about your personal refinement. It is connected to an assignment that stretches beyond your own comfort, beyond your own household, beyond your own timeline. The resistance came when it did because your obedience is about to impact more lives than you currently see. God is not calm today because your next step carries influence. There are people who will draw strength from your discipline. There are individuals who will learn stability from watching how you correct yourself. There are silent observers in your life who may never tell you, but they study your choices. Your private obedience teaches louder than your public words. This is why the distraction had to be confronted quickly. If it had rooted deeply, it would not only have delayed you, it would have confused those connected to your example. Archangel Michael's involvement was not only defensive, it was strategic. He stands guard over assignments that ripple outward. Your life is a signal, and signals must remain clear to guide others. You may not feel like a leader. You may not hold a visible title. But leadership is not defined by position. It is defined by influence. And influence is already present around you. God is not calm because the next season requires clarity in your voice. It requires steadiness in your decisions. It requires alignment that others can sense even if they cannot explain it. The mistake you made almost blurred that clarity. Imagine speaking wisdom while privately battling compromise. Imagine encouraging others while silently drifting. The internal conflict would have drained your authority. People feel authenticity. They feel alignment. When your inner life matches your outer voice, impact multiplies. Heaven preserve your integrity before expansion. There is also a spiritual timing element connected to this. A door is forming that will require you to respond quickly when it appears. Not react emotionally, but respond with discernment. The enemy hoped to entangle your focus so that when the door opens, you would hesitate or misjudge it. Delay would have cost you positioning. God is not calm because heaven values your placement in the right moment. Precision matters. Alignment ensures you recognize divine opportunities without confusion. You might start noticing invitations increasing, new responsibilities, new conversations, new ideas rising within you. These are not random. They are signals of transition. But transition requires courage. The correction you just walked through was training. It strengthened your discernment. It exposed your vulnerabilities. It sharpened your awareness. All of this prepares you to handle greater responsibility without drifting. Archangel Michael's presence around your assignment intensifies when impact expands. Greater influence attracts greater spiritual observation. That is not meant to intimidate you. It is meant to remind you that you are not ordinary in the spirit realm. Your obedience carries weight. God is not calm because he sees the harvest attached to your consistency. When you resist distraction, someone else finds direction. When you choose alignment, someone else finds courage. When you correct yourself quickly, someone else learns humility. You are part of a larger design. The enemy tried to make the battle feel personal and isolated so you would treat it casually. But now you see it differently. This was about protecting the flow of influence connected to your life. And here is something deeper still. The very area where you felt the most fatigue may become the area of your greatest authority. The place where you almost compromised may become the place where you counsel others with compassion and strength. Wounds that are healed become wisdom. God is not calm because he transforms weakness into testimony. But testimony requires honesty. Do not pretend the struggle never happened. Let it refine your empathy. Let it deepen your understanding of others who stumble. As you step into this broader assignment, humility must remain your anchor. Influence without humility creates pride. Pride opens doors that correction just close. Stay grounded. Speak less impulsively. Pray more intentionally. Listen more carefully. These habits will sustain you as responsibility increases. Before this day closes, seal this awareness in your spirit. Do not treat it as an emotional moment that fades tomorrow. Write down what you have learned. Remember how close drift felt. Remember how quickly mercy intervened. Type "I accept the assignment" in the comments if you receive this word. Blessing code 8822 is now activated. As you declare that, understand that this mission of awakening does not stop with you. When you release a super thanks, join membership, or so through the PayPal link in the description, you are extending this signal to someone standing at their own 11:55 p.m. moment. Scripture says that when you sow, you will reap in due season, and that promise is alive over you right now. Your seed becomes light in another household. Your generosity becomes oil in another lamp that was about to burn out. I am inviting you into prophetic partnership, not passive viewing. This is your moment to act in alignment with what you have received. As you give, heaven records your obedience and multiplies grace over your resources. Do not delay this response. Step forward and activate your support now. The weight of this message has not been about fear. It has been about awakening. Now you must understand what happens after awakening. Awareness creates separation. You can no longer unknow what you know. You can no longer pretend you did not sense the warning. You have crossed a line of understanding, and that line changes how you move forward. God is not calm today because this is a defining stretch in your spiritual maturity. There are moments in life that quietly divide seasons. They do not always come with dramatic signs. Sometimes they come as a message like this, a conviction that refuses to leave, a realization that you almost drifted into something that would have cost more than you were prepared to pay. You are standing in one of those moments. The battle was interrupted. The distraction was exposed. The route was identified. The assignment was clarified. But now comes the deeper work, sustaining transformation. Temporary awareness feels powerful. Sustained discipline builds legacy. Archangel Michael's role in this hour has been protective and strategic. But as protection stabilizes your environment, you must strengthen your inner structure. External guarding cannot replace internal growth. This is where many stumble. They experience deliverance from a moment, but they do not rebuild the mindset that allowed the moment to form. And without rebuilding, vulnerability returns in a different shape. God is not calm because He's calling you beyond reaction into reconstruction. Reconstruct your routines. What feeds your spirit consistently? What drains it? If your days are filled with noise and little reflection, clarity weakens. If your schedule leaves no room for stillness, discernment fades. Silence is not emptiness. It is alignment space. You were fatigued because you were carrying too much without releasing enough. You were comparing because you were observing too much without filtering enough. You were vulnerable because you were strong for too long without resting in God's presence. This next season requires rhythm, not rush. There is also a relational shift taking place. Some people will not understand the new boundaries you are setting. They may interpret your distance as coldness. They may interpret your discipline as judgment. But growth often feels uncomfortable to those who benefited from your previous accessibility. Do not apologize for alignment. God is not calm because He is refining your focus. And focus requires narrowing. You cannot entertain every voice. You cannot pursue every opportunity. You cannot respond to every invitation. Discipline means saying no to what is good in order to protect what is God-ordained. Archangel Michael's presence has been strongest around your household and assignment, but now the emphasis shifts inward. The question is no longer, will you avoid the mistake? The question is, will you build a life where that mistake loses attraction? Attraction fades when identity strengthens. You must settle something in your heart. You are not behind. The comparison that fueled your fatigue must end here. Your timeline is not a race against others. It is a journey shaped by obedience. The enemy thrives on urgency that leads to impatience. But divine urgency is different. It calls for action without anxiety. It invites response without panic. God is not calm because He sees the greatness forming within you. But greatness requires steadiness. It requires depth. It requires the kind of character that chooses alignment when no one applauds. There will be another test. Not identical, but similar in theme. Not to trap you, but to measure growth. And when it comes, you will feel the difference. What once felt tempting will now feel transparent. What once seemed justified will now appear shallow. That is maturity. You are moving from reaction to discernment, from fatigue to rhythm, from comparison to confidence. Still, remain watchful. The enemy rarely repeats the same strategy in the same way. He adjusts presentation. He studies your new boundaries and searches for alternative entry points. But now you are aware, and awareness disrupts strategy. God is not calm because this is not just about surviving a test. It is about becoming unshakable in your next level. There is something forming ahead that will require emotional resilience, a responsibility that will demand stability under pressure. If the old wound had remained untreated, that pressure would have exposed it. But now healing has begun. Healing strengthens endurance. Do not rush this process. Let growth settle deeply. Let discipline become habit. Let prayer become rhythm, not emergency response. You were warned before consequence. You were corrected before collapse. You were refined before elevation. And the story is still unfolding. What comes next will bring clarity about how to guard this new level practically and how to recognize the final tactic that almost secured your delay. Stay attentive, because the last layer of this revelation will reveal the finishing strategy that heaven dismantled on your behalf. There is one final layer you must understand about what almost happened. It was not only about distraction, fatigue, comparison, or delay. Beneath all of it was a subtle strategy designed to make you doubt your own discernment. If the enemy can make you question your spiritual sensitivity, he can slowly detach you from confidence in God's voice. God is not calm today because your ability to discern is critical for where you are going next. When you made that mistake, something else tried to whisper afterward. It said, maybe you are not as spiritually mature as you thought. It said, if you were truly aligned, you would not have slipped. It said, maybe you cannot trust your own judgment anymore. That whisper was more dangerous than the mistake itself, because doubt in your discernment creates hesitation in your obedience, and hesitation delays movement when divine opportunities appear. Archangel Michael's intervention was not only about blocking external harm, it was about preserving your confidence in God's guidance over your life. You were never meant to walk in perfection. You were meant to walk in responsiveness. Responsiveness builds trust. God is not calm because He is restoring your spiritual confidence. Not pride, not arrogance, but grounded assurance that when He speaks, you recognize it, and when you drift, you feel it quickly. The enemy hoped the mistake would spiral into self-condemnation. He hoped you would withdraw, feel unworthy, and shrink back from responsibility. But instead, correction strengthened you. Now you must guard that restored confidence carefully. You will begin to sense things before they fully manifest. Small hesitations, subtle discomforts, unexplainable pauses in your spirit. Do not ignore those signals. They are evidence that your discernment is sharpening. The mistake did not disqualify you. It trained you. God is not calm because your next season will require quick decisions. There will not always be extended time to analyze every opportunity. Sometimes you will need to move based on spiritual clarity alone. If doubt had taken root, you would second-guess every step. That was the final strategy, paralysis through insecurity. But insecurity loses power when humility remains active. You have already acknowledged the root. You have already corrected the distraction. You have already reestablished alignment in your household. Now confidence can rebuild on stable ground. Archangel Michael stands as a symbol of bold obedience. He does not hesitate when heaven gives instruction. And while you are not an angel, you are called to carry decisive faith in your own sphere. There will be voices that attempt to question your new boundaries. They may say you are overreacting. They may say you are becoming too serious. They may test whether your discipline is temporary. Stand firm. God is not calm because consistency will silence skepticism. When people see that your alignment is not emotional but intentional, their resistance fades. This is also the hour to publicly anchor your decision. If this message has awakened your spirit, engage with it actively. Like this video as a declaration that you choose discernment over doubt. Share it with someone who hath been questioning their spiritual sensitivity. Comment what you are committing to guard in this next season. Subscribe and remain connected to this community of vigilance and growth. Your interaction is not routine engagement. It is reinforcement of identity. When you align publicly, your private resolve strengthens. And hear this clearly before you move forward. What is about to unfold in your life will require courage without constant reassurance. You will not always receive confirmation from others. Sometimes clarity will come quietly, and you must trust it. That is maturity. The enemy's final tactic was to make you distrust your inner conviction so that when the next door opens, you would hesitate long enough to miss it. But heaven restored you before that door appears. God is not calm because timing is approaching again. Another 11:55 p.m. moment will come in a different form, not as warning but as opportunity. And when it does, you will recognize it not through pressure, but through peace. Peace is the new indicator. If something feels urgent but lacks peace, pause. If something feels calm but carries clarity, move. Discernment is no longer fragile in you. It has been tested and refined. The next revelation will bring this entire journey to completion. showing you how to seal this season permanently and walk forward without fear of repetition. The interruption that began as warning will end as confirmation. Stay attentive, because the closing words will determine how you step into what has been preserved for you. Now you stand at the edge of sealing this entire season. What began as a warning must end as a covenant. A covenant is not fear-driven obedience. It is conscious alignment chosen with clarity. You were alerted before consequence. You were corrected before collapse. But if you do not seal this moment intentionally, time will slowly dilute its impact. God is not calm today because he desires permanence, not temporary emotion. The mistake was exposed. The root was identified. The distraction was dismantled. The doubt was confronted. But now comes the final movement. Commitment without condition. There is a difference between saying, "I will try to do better," and declaring, "I will guard this ground." Trying leaves room for negotiation. Guarding establishes ownership. Archangel Michael's presence around your life during this season was not accidental. He represents divine defense over sacred territory. And your life is sacred territory. Your household is sacred territory. Your calling is sacred territory. Territory must be defended consistently. You cannot return to casual thinking. You cannot treat alignment as optional. The intensity of this message was not drama. It was mercy. Mercy that refused to allow drift to become destiny. God is not calm because what is ahead requires strength anchored in decision. You must settle certain standards now while the awareness is fresh. What will you no longer tolerate in your thinking? What influences will you no longer entertain? What boundaries will you enforce even if misunderstood? When you answer those questions firmly, something powerful happens. The atmosphere stabilizes permanently. The vulnerability that once existed loses its access point. The enemy thrives in undefined areas. Define your standards clearly. There will be days when emotion fluctuates. Days when fatigue tries to whisper again. Days when comparison attempts to resurface. But if your standards are pre-decided, you will not negotiate with weakness. Predecision protects destiny. God is not calm because he is calling you into a new rhythm of spiritual leadership over your own life. Not reactive spirituality, but proactive alignment. Not emergency prayer, but consistent communion. Not public passion alone, but private discipline. You were never meant to live at the edge of compromise. You were meant to walk with steady clarity. And here is something you must internalize deeply. You are not fragile. You are forming. The test did not reveal weakness as your identity. It revealed growth as your direction. Archangel Michael's intervention was a sign of value. Heaven did not dispatch protection for something insignificant. The intensity around your life confirms significance. Now that you know this, walk accordingly. The next season will not begin with fireworks. It will begin with subtle favor. Doors aligning quietly. Conversations shifting naturally. Resources connecting strategically. If you had remained misaligned, you might have misinterpreted these subtle movements. But now you will recognize them. God is not calm because he is orchestrating transitions behind the scenes. And transitions require readiness more than excitement. There is also forgiveness you must extend to yourself fully. Do not carry the memory of the mistake as a shadow over your confidence. Learn from it, yes, but do not relive it. Growth means you walk forward lighter, not heavier. If you keep replaying the failure, you empower it unnecessarily. Seal this season by declaring internally that you are aligned, aware, and advancing. Speak life over your household again. Speak clarity over your decisions again. Speak peace over your mind again. Repetition strengthens identity. The warning was urgent because the timing was precise. But now urgency transitions into stability. God is not calm because stability prepares you for expansion. And expansion is closer than you imagine. You will sense a new steadiness in your spirit. Less emotional swings. Less impulsive decisions. More thoughtful pauses. More confident yeses. More peaceful no's. This is evidence of sealing. Do not fear another test. Tests confirm growth. You will not face the next challenge as the same person who faced the last one. Awareness has changed you. Correction has strengthened you. Alignment has repositioned you. The final step now is activation. Not panic. Not pressure. But decisive forward movement rooted in everything you have understood. The next words you hear will close this chapter completely and release you into what has been preserved. Listen closely, because the seal you place now determines how firmly this ground remains guarded. My faithful one, this is the sealing moment. What began as an urgent warning now becomes a divine confirmation. God is not calm today, not because destruction was coming, but because destiny was too close to risk losing. You were interrupted because you are chosen. You were corrected because you are trusted. You were warned because heaven refuses to let your future be shaped by a temporary lapse. Now the cycle is broken. The mistake that could have echoed into delay has been silenced. The distraction that tried to root itself has been uprooted. The doubt that whispered insecurity hath been exposed. And the territory of your life has been reclaimed with awareness and authority. Archangel Michael's assignment around you shifts now. Not from defense to absence, but from emergency guard to strategic covering. The intensity that surrounded this season begins to calm, not because the battle was small, but because the ground hath been secured. You responded before midnight. The symbolic 11:55 p.m. in your spirit was not ignored. You did not scroll past conviction. You did not silence awareness. You leaned in. And that decision altered outcomes you may never fully see. God is not calm because heaven is passionate about alignment. But now alignment has been restored. From this moment forward, you will notice something different. Your peace will feel steadier. Your discernment will feel clearer. Your boundaries will feel stronger. The same distraction that once looked appealing will now appear transparent. The same fatigue that once drove compromise will now signal rest instead of reaction. You have matured through this. Do not underestimate what just happened. A potential cycle was stopped before it began repeating. A delay was dismantled before it consumed time. A wound was healed before it deepened. And now, promotion approaches without hidden instability. There will be new opportunities, new responsibilities, new influence. But you will not enter them fragile. You will enter them refined. You will not enter them doubting your discernment. You will enter them grounded in confidence. You will not enter them comparing timelines. You will enter them trusting divine timing. This is the reward of responsiveness. God is not calm because he is still moving, still positioning, still orchestrating what you cannot yet see. But the urgency has turned into momentum. Remember this forever. The warning was mercy. The rebellion was protection. The interruption was love. When the next defining moment comes, and it will, you will recognize it faster. You will not hesitate in insecurity. You will not drift in fatigue. You will stand in clarity. Archangel Michael remains assigned to guard what carries divine purpose. And your life carries divine purpose. Seal this now with your own declaration. Type "I walk in alignment" in the comments if you receive this final word. Blessing code 9900 is released over your household and your next season. As you step into this alignment, understand something sacred. This message did not reach you by accident, and it must not stop with you. When you release a super thanks, join membership, or sow through the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a platform. You are sowing into moments like this for souls standing at their own 11:55 p.m. The Lord says, as you pour, I will pour back into you, and that promise breathes over your obedience right now. Your seed becomes light in someone else's midnight. Your generosity becomes a shield over another household that almost drifted. This is not charity. It is prophetic participation. As you give, heaven records your partnership in rescue and multiplies grace over your finances, your family, and your future. Do not treat this as optional. Act in alignment with what you have received. Step forward now. Activate your support. Seal this word with obedience.